Well, it's almost springtime and competition season is open and running, and we got a 3-gun match coming up this weekend, so I thought I'd do a quick cleaning video. Let's get the M&P Pro cleaned up and ready for a little 3-gun over the weekend. Now, as we get started, I've talked to a bunch of people over the years about what they use for cleaning. While there are a ton of cleaning options out there, I wanted to go over some of the products that I use. Certainly Ballistol. I've used the aerosol for quite a long time. I just recently picked up the Ballistol pump. Don't really care for it. It shoots out a stream of chemical, which I'm not really enjoying that too much, but anyway. I've also used the Frog Lube. It works fine. In fact, I bought a Frog Lube cleaner, which seems to work. It removes dirt and oil and residue. It's a clear liquid. Seems to work okay. And in a super duper pinch, I'll even go with regular rubbing alcohol. Doesn't clean the gun fouling, the gunpowder fouling as well, but it'll certainly work in a pinch. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on cleaning the Smith Wesson M&P 9C, and I'll show you some of the things that I use to do it. Certainly you're going to need a brush. This brush has a small narrow cleaning end on it, as well as the toothbrush size. This is plastic bristle. I like this a lot, only because the kids complain when I use their toothbrushes to clean a gun, and this is quite a bit softer, but in a pinch this will certainly work if you've got nothing else. Some people like to use cotton buds or Q-tips. Personally, I don't use them that often. It's a rare occasion that I will, because they leave cotton behind, and there's nothing that I can't get without a regular cloth cleaning pad. And just recently I've started using old t-shirts. Instead of throwing them away, I'll cut them up into pieces. Cotton t-shirts, they work extremely well. For cleaning the bore, there are a couple of options there. You can go with the standard brass bore brush and the cleaning rod, which I've used for decades. Over the past couple of years, I've switched over to the bore snake, and I like the bore snake because it's kind of an all-in-one. It's got a little guide string that drops the bore snake itself through the barrel of the gun, a little cloth here with a caliber specific brass brush built into it, and as you pull it through, it scrapes. Hold on while I answer the phone. It scrapes clean and then brushes and polishes as you pull through. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. And for those of you not familiar with the Smith & Wesson M&P series, we'll go over that real quick. The steps that you go through to disassemble it. Oh, one thing that I didn't go over is the skewer sticks that I use. These are extremely inexpensive little bamboo sticks. They're used for cooking like shish kebabs and stuff, but I get like packs of 100 of these for $1, and when they wear out I just throw them away. But they've got a little pointy end on one end and a square end on the other end, and I use these as cheap as they are. With the Smith & Wesson, there is a magazine lock. Let me see if you can see that well enough. Get my hand out of the way. There's a little pin in there. You see it? I just stuck it up the little angled piece right there. If you flip that to the down position, you can remove the slide without pulling the trigger. And to do that, just slide that lever forward, pull it back, just a hair till it clicks and it'll slide right off. If you do not flip that little, there it is, if you do not flip that little wire up or down, that's okay. You just have to pull the trigger to release the slide. And then you remove guide rod and spring assembly, barrel, and that's it. Let me zoom in just a little bit so you can get a better angle on this. There you go. Okay, and that's it to disassembling. Now you'll notice my guide rod and spring assembly is a little bit different than stock. I changed this. This is a double spring assembly that aids in the recoil, even though it's a 9mm. It was an option I saw online, so I got it. But it's the same concept. Spring still comes off. Finished end of the spring always goes on first, even though this one has finished on both ends. Okay, so let's start cleaning. Just very lightly. No lubricants or anything inside the firing pin area. This is just going to be a field strip clean. And actually I could use a paper towel to do the initial wipe, but what I like to do is just wipe off any fouling, any residue, any dirty oil that's in there. My initial first wipe is just by hand to get big pieces out of the way before I get in and do the detail cleaning. And the ballistol works very well. It cuts the residue, it dissolves the powder fouling very quickly, and it leaves a light oil on everything, even after you've wiped it off. So now I'll go back through and give it a little bit more spray. And it doesn't take much. I'm not soaking the handgun down, I'm just kind of getting everything wet and letting it do its thing. And with the barrel, I like to let it set in there for just a minute. There's a little bit more fouling inside the barrel than there is on the slide or on the frame. So while that barrel is sitting there soaking, I'll start doing some of the detail work on the frame. Now, as I've said in all of my cleaning videos, if you get in the habit of cleaning your firearm, whether it's a rifle, shotgun, pistol, whatever, if you get in the habit of cleaning it after each use, you really don't have to put that much time into it, as we'll see with this video. This gun probably, if I had to guess, I would say it probably has about 6,000 to 8,000 rounds through it. Maybe 5,000 or 6,000 rounds. I don't get carried away. But each time I take it out, I'll be sure and clean it before I go back out to shoot the next time. And in doing that, I really don't have a big mess that I have to clean up that would warrant an ultrasonic cleaner or anything like that. And this is one of those military leftover things. Every time we went out to the firing line, practice or whatever, we were always required to clean our weapons before we store them back in the armory. Although those were required to be cleaned spotless, I've learned over the years they don't really require that for proper operation. So each time I get it, I just dig around in there, get as much knocked loose out of the nooks and crannies, and then wipe down on the big areas. That's where the brush comes in handy, either the toothbrush or the cleaning brush with the small end or the big end. But all that I'm trying to do is just wipe as much powder residue out as I can. It does not have to be spotless, certainly on a Springfield 1911 or M&P. Yeah, 1911 is the same way. Now if we're going to do a gun cleaning on an AR-15, that's a little bit different story. That's more of a precision firearm. that does require a bit more care and attention to detail. The AK-47 or AK-74 on the opposite end of the spectrum doesn't. Okay, so the lower is finished. Let's do the slide assembly. And again, that's where the toothbrush comes in handy. I use the big side, set the pad down, and use the pad to absorb the ballistol, which has already soaked up and started to dissolve any residue that's in there. Now you're going to see flakes and little pieces of brass shavings and everything. Those will brush right out, and remember that the brass is much softer than the components of the handgun, so the brass is not going to cause any damage other than getting in the way. It's not going to scratch anything, it's not going to hurt anything. Now, one of the things on here is the extractor, and the extractor is this little piece. There we go. It is that little piece right there, and the extractor is what grabs on to the base of the bullet and throws it out after it's been fired. So the one thing that you do need to make sure is that your extractor is clean. Those can get fouled up, and that means that residue is going to get inside that little lip that you see on there, and it will not be able to grab the end of the brass clean. And if I've got a bullet around here, the extractor grabs that lip right there on the bottom of the brass and throws it, extracts it out of the gun. So anyway, we do not use a chemical, a solvent in there, and the problem with that is your solvent will get down in your firing. Boy, let me get that on camera. Your solvent will get down in the firing pin mechanism, and if there's solvent or oil in there, it will just attract dirt, grease, grime, powder, and the more crud you get in there, the more packed it's going to get, and the less that spring is going to function for the firing pin. So what I do is I just dry rub it with a brush in there, and then I'll bring a pad back in with no solvents, and you can see that gets a bit of dirt out of there. Again, that does not have to be spotless, but certainly the cleaner the better. The cleaner you get it, the less you have to clean it next time, and the less buildup that you have. In a pinch, you could certainly get by with just a brush and blowing it out. And where do I have that? No, you do not need to buy canned air. There's another way that you can do that. You can blow on it. Don't spit on it, blow on it. Okay, so anyway, the rails are cleaned out, the slide rails. There's no residue inside there. If you really wanted to make sure that they were super clean, that's where the little skewer comes into play, because it fits right down in there. Put a little pad down in there and run it just to get any residue out. And then you can take that, and I can see a little brass shaving, brass flaking. I can just run this around in there. Now I'm getting super detailed, and that's probably too much. Alright, so that is a acceptably clean slide. And it's harder to tell on the black anodized that you've got everything off there, but I can tell from the reflection that that's clean. Alright, so that piece is clean. The next piece would be the guide rod and spring assembly, and that's very easy. That's just a quick wipe. These very rarely get dirty. I'm just taking the previous oil off. That's got some residue from fouling on there from the flash, and then I'll do the same thing with the spring and just wipe that. That's clean. Alright, the only thing that we have left is the barrel itself. So a quick wipe down on all corners and edges, just like before on the lower and on the slide. And all that I'm doing is just breaking anything off of there. And you can see there's a little buildup. So underneath those edges, I'll take another clean, kind of clean pad, and just give it a scrub with the thin end of the cleaning brush. And wherever there's an edge, I'm just going to run the brush and the pad over it. You can see I didn't pull much of anything off of there, but now we have the barrel itself to clean, and I'll kind of try and give you a before and after. Now that's got the ballast all inside of it. What's it been, a couple of minutes? It's done its soaking. So let's run the bore snake through there. And the weighted end, the weight just makes it easier to pull everything else through. And you follow the direction of the bullet, as I've said before in my videos. And then you just very gradually pull it through. It's going to be a little snug. And it is recommended that you do that a few times. Now there are some people that herky-jerky it through. There are some people that pull it straight through. I think the important thing is that you're pulling it through. And you can hear how tight that is. Okay, that was 3 pulls. And to me, I don't see any buildup. And what did that take? 10 seconds? Now let's just see how clean we actually got it. And I don't recommend you guys doing this because I don't think a barrel needs to be this clean, but I've got an old smooshed up 9mm brass brush here, and this is always a good test to see how clean it got it. Now that would not fail an inspection, and I don't believe very much of that is from this old beat up brush, but the 3 passes through there, that would still pass. I don't see any real buildup in there. I'm looking at the grooves inside the barrel to see if the edges in the twist grooves are clean. Clean is good. But to me that is certainly competition ready. Okay, let's go ahead and reassemble it. Not a lot of oil needed. It's always a good idea to oil your weapon. And there are a couple of points to keep in mind with any non-revolver weapon. In the slides, I like to go with 1 drop quarter front, 1 drop quarter back on each side. And on the Smith Wesson there are 6 little holes drilled in there. Those are actually oil or lubrication retention holes, and I'll put 1 drop in each. And that was probably a little much. Too much is not bad. I don't want to be a slob. And then I'll put a drop. Where did I go? I'll put a drop on the back here, just a single drop. Now on the lower, it's easier to see on the lower with the wear marks. I'm trying to get the light off of there, but you can see certainly here that the finish is worn, and you can see that here, I think you can see that the finish is worn. and here. Now those are supposed to be drops, but I'm doing this through the viewfinder, so those are a little heavy. You do not need to go that heavy on there. And don't worry about smearing it around, it'll smear when we put it all back together. Now the other thing that I like to do is to oil the guide rod, which is drop, 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 drop. I know that's too much, but I'm telling you what I do. And then slide that back on. And what I like to do is to go with a couple of drops and cover my slide. We'll do more of this in just a minute, but before I put it back together, I like to oil that up a little bit. And reassembly is a snap. Slide goes in first. It'll slide all the way back into the fit locked position. Guide rod and spring assembly. On the M&P 9, this end is going to be, or on the M&P 9 Pro, this end is going to be unfinished. The wire will be just kind of sticking out, but that's the end that goes in there. Slide it back in and set it down in there. There's only one way to set it. And then to reassemble it, I like to do it upside down, but you're just going to line it all back up with the lower slide and slide it forward. Now, you'll need to make sure that that is slid forward. What I do is I hold it with my thumb there and rack it back and then release it and let it come forward. Now this pistol is locked and ready. Final piece is to wipe all my oily fingerprints off of there. And to get it all off my sandpaper. And wipe it down good around your front sight. You don't want any glare from oil or anything coming up. No excuses in competition. Wipe all the excess oil off the outside because you don't need it. Give it a wipe inside the gun well. And notice how handy the old used cotton t-shirt comes into play in doing those final wipes. You can use these for months before you can swipe another t-shirt from somebody. A quick function check. Nothing flew off, nothing flew out. Slide stop works. Nothing flew off. Point in a safe direction. Works. There's no safety on this particular model. The only other thing that I do before I put it back in the safe or take off is that little piece right there. I'll make sure that I've got just a drop of oil on it, and you don't need to do it. It's just one of those things that it's a wear point that I don't like, and it doesn't hurt anything. I just want to make sure that I wear it as little as possible. Now there are others that will put, at this point, a drop of oil on the guide rod and on the slide and just let it run down for a minute and then cycle it. That pistol is completely cleaned and ready. No excessive oil dripping off of it. You don't want that. It's got enough oil on it to run it through a match, but just in case, you know, I always carry a spare bottle in my bag. But that was a review and cleaning of the Smith & Wesson M&P 9 Pro. See ya.